Hi there. It's Father's Day here in New Zealand, and we've just come back from a nice walk around the estuary, which is near to our house, looking the Pacific Ocean. Springtime is just hitting us here. Beautiful daffodils around, blossoms. The coldness of winter at last going, and my garden is beginning to spring out. Very much excited about that. I went with my two daughters and my wife. One of my daughters turned 30 yesterday, and the other is off for Britain today. And we won't be seeing her for 3 years, unless we get across there. It's interesting, as we were wandering around, we often go down to the estuary and walk around what's called the spit. There's plovers and long-journeyed migrant birds. They find their way into the estuary. Very, very pleasant. We used to walk around there with a lovely old dog. And still, when we walk around there, our dog so often joins us, as he did today. Even though he's been dead for 4 years, or 5 years now, he's practically with us, chasing the gulls, jumping into the sea, all the life and vitality that he ever had. The good thing about a dog is the unfailing good humour, no matter what. We reckon that, we were talking, no one with a heart could be cruel to a dog. Their capacity to forgive and forget and to find fun in everything around them is such a model for us. But it's got me thinking about the transitoriness of life and the traces we leave. Immortality, if you like. I guess it's related to my motivation behind these YouTube postings that I'm beginning. It's primarily a record for my children and for their children and onto the future children that I will not see, for people I don't know, but who will carry a part of me in themselves. I guess you could call that a sort of objective immortality. The idea came to me because I was looking up an old photo album that my grandfather had made, maybe 80 years ago. It's been in the family, slowly growing ever since that time, but he used to take photographs back at the turn of the last century, and in that there are old photos from his parents and grandparents back in Ireland and Britain, back into the middle 1800s. If I ever did know anything about those people, the stories that my own grandparents had told me, I've long since forgotten them, and I wish that those people's stories were known to me. Sure, they look strange with their poses of familial authority and studied nonchalance, but beyond that, all trace has been forever lost. They're now just fading photos. So I want not so much to be known by them for my own sake, as to avoid them being in the same position that I am now with respect to my great-grandparents. I want to know what they were like, what they valued, what they believed, what drove them. And I feel that we may well owe an apology to the future. So this is my way of trying to become more real for the children who arise from me in that future. Is this what we mean by immortality? The endurance of the memory of somebody? I can't think so. Sure, the thought of enduring beyond physical death holds some attractions, but if it's just in the memory of others, it's pretty clear that living as a memory is not living at all. It's not much good to the memory. Who wants to be a memory? What is the subjectivity or the subjective experience of memory? It might be some sort of objective immortality, but since we all live subjective existences, it's pretty irrelevant to us, surely. I mean, do memories have experiences? Yeah, this idea of being immortal because of the memory being carried on generation after generation was very much a theme in the writings of Homer and the ancient bards of the epic narratives of the Trojan Wars. For example, in the Iliad, which is very much a story about kleos, which is glory, being the vehicle by which a person's immortality is carried, the memory into the future because of the glory won through great battles. That is the route that Achilles chooses when offered either a short life going out in glory or a long life but without kleos, without fame, and his memory dying. he undoubtedly and unhesitatingly chooses to have the glorious life filled with kleos and filled therefore with immortality. But then when Homer begins to write the story of Odysseus' return after the Trojan War in the Odyssey, Odysseus meets, in about book 11, he meets with Achilles in Hades, and he learns there that his impression has radically changed. He has seen through the emptiness of kleos and fame, the endurance of memory as a form of immortality. And he says he would far rather be the slave of even the most common and wretched worker but still be alive, rather than have the great kleos he does, but living even as ruler of the dead. Another type of objective, non-personal immortality derives from our biology. We are the current front end of an unbroken gene stream which goes back to the beginnings of life. We're made up of cells that have been replicating themselves for millions of years. They're not in our bodies, but in those of our ancestors. It's a nice idea again, but still not a subjective or personal immortality, just an objective one. Yeah, it's a nice thought for the living, but not much of a thought for the dead. No, I wouldn't class this as immortality or afterlife in any really satisfying way. And what about the afterlives that are promised by religion? Well, maybe they're true, but I'm not too convinced by the assurances of others. I mean, they're the same people who assured me that Father Christmas was real and that there were leprechauns at the bottom of my garden. So why do we need to believe in this idea of immortality? We clearly do. It's an idea which is in every culture. But what would happen if we, in fact, relinquish that idea? Ernest Becker, in his bestseller, The Denial of Death, explained it very well, and as a death-denying strategy, defending ourselves in the teeth of a radical existential threat. Buddhism also recognises the issue, but explores a different route, looking more at the consequence of giving up on the idea of the ego's endurance or immortality by positing that the ego is non-real. I'll explore those ideas in a later posting. But for now, I've sort of summarised the way I'm feeling. It seems that to find comfort in an immortality based on one's memory into the future, or progeny into the future, might be metaphorically satisfying, but is really empty because it confuses objective endurance, which sure enough is real, with subjective endurance, experienced endurance, which isn't real. So my long search will continue. Thanks.